Hello my random viewers and welcome to Randomly Offensive. Today we will be continuing the story of Genetic Blessings and Genetic Wars in their sequel, Genetic Curses, with today's chapter, Genetic Curses, the Introduction. And if you have missed its predecessors, I will have Genetic Blessings and Genetic Wars in a playlist linked at the tippy top of this video right here, right now. If you want to click on them and check them out, feel free. If not, no harm done. And with that all being said, let's continue with Genetic Curses, the Introduction. The gold and white temple of Dracula shakes with ferocity, as though an earthquake had erupted from the earth's core, all due to two men clashing in combat. Right in the center of the gold and white temple, these two men being no other than Vince Caballero and the Chief, as they had locked into combat, with Vince Caballero covering his body in his genetic blessing force field. And though it is not the blue color that has come to be recognized upon Vince, but more of a white aura that delivers him an incredible, fierce amount of power that allows him to shake the very core of the planet with every strike that he delivers towards the Chief, with the Chief not losing an inch of skill nor strength in the 7 years that he had been imprisoned, as the diamond plating blocks every strike thrown from Vince, while simultaneously using the air manipulation that the Chief has had to fend off the more piercing strikes from Vince Caballero, as the two are heavily locked into battle. Abraham and Count Dracula walk in circles around the two who are fighting, as Dracula is shouting commands to Vince, with Abraham simply examining the two fighters and watching how Vince and the Chief operate when fighting one another. How on earth do you intend on defeating the higher entities if you cannot even defeat the Chief? Says Dracula as he still walks around the two who are still locked in combat, with Vince listening to Dracula and the Chief getting slightly offended. You must not focus so much on your strength, but focus on what really makes you a great genetic blessing, Vince. And that is your intellect, your knowledge. How about you put that to a little bit of use? Continues Dracula, with the Chief now going on the offensive and throwing diamond-like spears towards Vince, with Vince ducking, bobbing, and weaving, avoiding the spears, as the wind created from the Chief then pulls Vince near. The Chief wraps his hand in a massive block of diamond and connects to the jawline of Vince Caballero, with Vince using the momentum and the strength that has just connected to his jawline, though being protected by his force field. He allows the Chief to throw him to the left, as he then allows his body to go airborne and rotates it, delivering a massive upside-down rounding house kick, connecting this time to the Chief's jawline, as they both hit the ground and bounce back up with ferocity. Dracula simply smiles. Now, do not even try to tell me that that is everything that you two have to offer. It's nothing compared to the higher entities. How on earth do you expect us to defeat the Guardians if your guys' strength don't even pass elementary? mocks Dracula, as Vince and the Chief then look at him. How about we take you on, and you can tell us how we fare? How about that, Dracula? Do you honestly think that we stand no chance? How about you fight me, the Chief and Abraham, and tell me how little of a threat we truly are? Remarks the Vince, with Dracula putting a finger on his chin and smiling. No, that would be a waste of our energy. Walter is going to be returning soon, and if you have not figured out how to use your genetic curse, the most you can do, Vince, is learn how to use your genetic blessing properly. It's the least you can do. The least you can do, says Abraham, with Dracula looking at Abraham. I'm sorry, what was that? The saying, it's not the most you can do, it's the least you can do. The least you can do is learn how to use your genetic blessings properly, says Abraham, with Dracula waving him off. My knowledge of the English language and my grammar is the least of our concerns right now, Abraham, responds Dracula, as he and Abraham then continue watching Vince fight the Chief. For though the Chief is the most dangerous and the mightiest threat that Dracula has seen on Earth, and is more than a formidable foe against any man, including Dracula himself, he is nothing when compared to the higher entities, when compared to the Guardians. And Dracula knows that he has far too much work to do, with far too little time to do it. Knowing that Walter, Al, and Alex will return, and hopefully, for Dracula's sake, they will return alone and without the other Guardians, though Walter will not make the same mistake twice. He will not return in his human form and allow Vince to get the upper hand. He will return in his true form, in his true body, and when he does, there is little hope that they might survive. And all Dracula can do is train Vince, the Chief, and Abraham, and hope that his plan will work, and hope that the Guardians will show mercy just long enough for them to gain the upper hand. Though Vince, the Chief, and Abraham are not the only ones receiving training, for meanwhile, Al and Alex have received their own training in the Garden of the Gods, as Alex learns of all the technological advances of the Guardians, and learns of the technological advances of the gods themselves, and studies in the scientific development of the Olympians and the Asgardians, and just about any other mythological kingdom that they have of Earth, has all been translated in the form of science. All so that Alex can truly master her own scientific abilities and develop her own technological advances in order to return to Earth and defeat Dracula, Abraham, and the man she once called her father, Vince Caballero. The man that had betrayed her for reasons unknown to her. And all she can think of is what side she has chosen. For these higher entities, these guardians, have proven to be mischievous and backstabbing, manipulative, and quite self-centered in the mythology she grew up reading as a child. And meeting them in person, they prove to be no better than the mythologies of Earth. However, they do prove to be more human, with more faults, and they have their own reasoning for the crimes that they had committed, which Alex, above all other people, can understand. For Vince Caballero was always the same way. He was always seen as a villain, as the demon, and it was only her that knew the true motivations behind his cruel and evil actions. It was only her that truly understood that Vince was more human than anyone else would ever realize. Though Al is not as understanding, as he takes the training of Merlin and King Arthur, for Al has become the rightful beholder of Excalibur, and they train him in the ways of the craft of swordsmanship, all so that Al can enact his revenge on Vince. And Al does not care of the reasoning, he does not care about the motivations, the way he sees it. Vince himself had just made Jasmine's sacrifice, Jasmine's death, in vain. He had made Howard's sacrifice in vain. Zorg and Lance, they had all died for no reason. All because of Vince's choice, all because of Vince's actions, all because of Vince's betrayal. For they were seconds away, moments away from victory. And now they have been defeated, with Al being the last remaining human being. The last human that does not possess a genetic blessing. The last human that cannot be controlled by Count Dracula or by any of the other guardians. And though Alex had yet to discover what her genetic blessing is, she can feel it growing. She can feel the genetics shifting in her body. She can feel the genetic blessing taking course in her veins. And Al is forced to watch as Alex goes through pain and suffering, as her body alters. And he can only imagine what the rest of the world, what the rest of the human race must be going through. And he knows that he must defeat Vince, and he must kill Dracula and these higher entities, these guardians. Walter and those he works for are his only chance, is his only hope of possibly making things right. And so he trains and he wields Excalibur almost as well as King Arthur himself, for he has mastered the ability to completely let go of the blade, but still wield it with his mind. As the sword fends off King Arthur, Al then uses the gun that he had been gifted from Howard to fend off Merlin in his training, as he is one of the very few human beings to ever manage to take on both Merlin and Arthur. And the higher entities, the Guardians, begin to have high hopes for Al as the days move on, and day after day, Alex and Al both prove to be tremendous allies for the Guardians. Walter has been given the task to return to Earth and bring Dracula, Vince, and Abraham to the court of the gods, and he had been requested to bring Al and Alex along for the fact that Alex is so close to Vince that they may actually be able to convince him to turn and join them once again. With Al being the final human, he can be the beacon of hope for the world, for the planet Earth. He can be the beacon of hope for those who have turned to genetic blessings. However, Walter has one thing he must do. He has only one thing that he must show Al and Alex, for Walter fears that returning to Earth, it may not be Alex or Al that can manipulate and convince Vince to switch sides, but instead the other way around, for he fears that Vince may actually have developed a sound, reasonable argument, whether he is right or wrong, and he is afraid of Vince's persuasive skills, and is truly afraid of the emotional status that Al and Alex are currently in. So, the morning of the day that they are about to return to Earth, Walter confronts Alex and Al and informs them that they must follow him, and they must complete one task before returning to the planet Earth. And so Walter leads Al and Alex up a flight of stairs, a marble flight of stairs with narrow walls that lead to a room that is nothing more than a platform in the middle of the universe, as they are surrounded by stars and planets. And in the room stands 6 mirrors. As Al and Alex look around the room at these 6 mirrors, they begin to wonder where Walter has led them, as Walter grabs hold of one of the mirrors.
Now, this here is how we get around. This mirror here is what leads to the planet Earth. It what leads to your guys' world. And this is the world, that everyone starts out in. It is the world that all guardians, that all of the so-called gods, myths, and legends start. And as they grow, as they gain more power and prove their worth, they move on to these other worlds, says Walter, as he then uses his hand to wave at the other mirrors. These mirrors lead to other worlds, and we are going to go to one of them. I need to show you one of them, says Walter, with Al and Alex being speechless at their newfound knowledge.
And Walter leads them in to one of the mirrors. As Walter, Al, and Alex walk through the mirror, the glass becomes that of a liquid. As they walk through it and enter a world that is covered in fire and brimstone, with everything burnt, not a tree, not a blade of grass in sight, as every building is burnt to ash, with beings that used to be human have now become mutated, monster-like creatures as a result of them consuming the god orbs and having them for far too long, as they are now killing one another, as spouses kill each other, siblings slaughter one another. Not even the youngest child is safe in this world. As Al and Alex watch, Walter turns around to them.
Now, this here is a result of what happens when an entire world is taken over by genetic blessing. This is the result of a world with no human beings. This right here is what is going to become of Earth because of Vince Caballero, because of his actions. And now they are wanting to rise against us because they blame the gods. They blame me and the others for their starvation. They blame us for the slaughter that they commit. They blame us for the plague that they caused, and so now they will rise against us. They want to rise, and if there are no guardians, if a world rises against the guardians and if they succeed and kill all guardians, the universe will cease to exist. Every planet will die. And so there is only one option, says Walter, with Al and Alex even more speechless and terrified at what Walter has shown them, and so they return to the room, back through the mirror, as Walter then grabs the mirror, with Al becoming worried. "What is the one option, Walter?" says Al, as Walter then picks up the mirror, with Alex and Al both feeling rage at the actions that they know Walter is about to take, as Al then charges Walter and tackles him to the ground, with the mirror smashing into the ground with the corner of it cracking, with Walter effortlessly grabbing Al by the shoulder and throwing him off. "You don't seem to understand, Al. This world cannot be allowed to continue. It cannot be left alone," says Walter, with Al feeling even more rage. "They are innocent people." No, innocent, no, they are not innocent. They eat one another because they destroyed everything. They destroyed their planet, and now they kill each other and consume one another. And this world, there's beings all wanting to rise against the gods. Plain and simple, without the guardians, without a god, no world will survive. No universe will be existent. We would be nothing. There will be nothing. Do you understand? This is the only outcome. Destroy this world to ensure the existence and the future of the other 5 worlds, one of them being yours. And I show you this, I show you this now, to inform you that if Earth does not get back on the right track, if the Earth continues to only have genetic blessings, then this will be its fate. And if Vince Caballero is successful at killing the Guardians, the universe will cease to exist, yeah? This is what I must show you, and this is what I must do as an agent of the Guardians, says Walter as he picks up the mirror once again and crashes it down back to the ground as the glass shatters and the frame breaks, with the world ceasing to exist as if it never spun in the universe. Meanwhile, Vince and Abraham sit on a rock on the outside of the golden white temple of Count Dracula, as Dracula and the chief strategize and plan. Vince and Abraham simply sit on the outside. Abraham, you once congratulated me. You told me you were proud of me for thinking logically instead of emotionally when I made the decision to side with Dracula. Oh, yes, I did. I thought it was a hell of an improvement. I was impressed and quite proud. You did not allow your emotions to guide your judgment, and that is the only reason, Vince, that I followed you. But you are wrong, Abraham. It was an emotional decision. I was scared. It was the emotion of fear that made me choose to side with Dracula. You were there. You saw what Hades was capable of, and Walter defeated him simply by touching him, destroyed him, eradicated him, erased any sign of Hades ever existing by a simple touch. That made me feel a level of fear that I have never felt. And so, you have nothing to be proud of, Abraham. I sided with Dracula out of fear. Ah, yes, that I am aware of. You were afraid, and you chose Dracula's side because you were afraid of what the higher entities, what the Guardians are capable of. However, it was a logical decision.
if you made a decision purely out of fear, you would have followed them. You would have sided with them so that they'd never harm you. Instead, you made the logical decision to get rid of them, which, since you fear them as much as you say, it is a very brave and logical decision. And I am still proud of you, Vince. This is going to be a hell of a fight, says Abraham, giving Vince a warming smile. The same smile that he had received from Abraham years and years ago when he was only a child, when he tried to steal and scam the man that he had no idea was a powerful genetic blessing and one of the more respected professional criminals in the underground. And though Abraham could have killed Vince that day and all his friends, he took Vince in as if he was one of his children, and raised Vince, and trained him in the way of the underground, and in many, many ways is the reason Vince is the man he is today. As Vince forces his sentimental emotions out and pushes them down, he then looks at the gold and white temple.
So, what on earth do you think Dracula and the Chief are talking about? Think they're catching up or talking strategy?
Oh, most likely strategy. We're living in borrowed time, Vince. Either the human race are going to kill us for betraying them, or Walter's going to kill us for betraying him. As Vince and Abraham return to the Chief and Dracula in the gold and white temple, they see that the Chief and that Count Dracula has 3 large papers rolled out onto the table. One appears to be blueprints, as another appears to be maps, and another one that has a list of names.
So, says Vince, what is the plan? Dracula, you have yet to express just exactly how you intend on defeating the Guardians.
With Dracula nodding his head, and then giving Vince a smile. Yes. Well, the plan is simple, Vince. You see, every world has genetic blessings and human beings. There are a total of 6 of us, though I do not believe that one of them will be around much longer, leaving 5 worlds, with Earth included. We must get to the Garden of the Gods, the Garden of the Guardians. You see, I have blueprints here. There is a room inside that has mirrors. These mirrors are how we get to the other worlds. It's how the Guardians and the gods get to the worlds, this one included. However, every world has human beings and genetic blessings. But one of the other things that these worlds have in common is that each one has one genetic curse. You are this world's genetic curse, meaning that we have already got you. We, if we want to have any chance against the genetic guardians, we must collect the genetic curses from their world. We must go and grab each genetic curse. That leaves 4 planets, 1 for each of us. The chief will go to 1, I will go to 1, you will go to 1, and Abraham will go to 1. And with any luck, we will be able to convince these genetic curses to join us and return to the garden and defeat the Guardians. "Oh, that is just fine and dandy," says Abraham as he mockingly praises Dracula. "And just exactly how are we going to go to the Garden of the Gods? How are we going to get there, "It is simple," interrupts the chief. "All we must do is wait. We must be strong enough, yes, to defeat our opponents, but not alone. And we must fight Walter when he comes here, but only to survive. I have a feeling that he's going to want to take us alive. And with that being the case, then our answer is coming to us. Walter is returning, and when he does, all we have to do is let him take us alive. It is there that Dracula will plant his scheme, and we will escape into the mirrors. Now, after that, interrupts Vince, as he now has a good idea of what the plan is. We will be hunted down into these separate worlds. However, if we split up and enter our own world, then the Guardians too will split up, increasing our odds. And if we can avoid the Guardians long enough to attain a genetic curse, then we can fight them. And we can fight them in the world that is most familiar to the genetic curse that resides in it, giving us an edge. Am I close to the mark on that?" says Vince, with Dracula nodding his head. "Yes, Vince, you are hitting the bullseye. That is the plan. All we must do is wait for Walter to return. We will have to fight him. We will put up a fight so that it does not seem like we want to be captured. And hopefully we can survive. I am certain that I have been demanded to be brought alive, but I cannot say the same about the rest of you, and it is the rest of you I need. I can't have any of you dying, or else this plan will crumble." "Well then," responds Abraham, "we'll just sit here then and wait. I'm sure we're strong enough to simply survive. And I'm curious to explore other worlds. However, I do have one question. How do you expect us to recruit genetic curses? How do you know that they aren't going to be loyal to the Guardians? How do you know that they're going to side with us?" That one is simple. The gods are afraid of genetic curses, meaning they're exiled in almost every world, meaning that they will not be favorable to the Guardians, and they most likely do not have the highest impressions of them. However, there is no guarantee that they will want to side with us. It is going to take persuasion, and time. We are not looking at an easy feat, nor are we looking at a short one. However, if we do not act fast, there is a good chance that the Guardians will destroy Earth, especially since there are no humans left. The Guardians hate a world full of genetic blessings. "Do you know why?" asks Vince. "Other than the fact that they are afraid of a race growing so strong that they can be overran? No. No, I am not certain why. Though I am positive that it is only because they want power. They want full control over every world, meaning a world full of genetic blessings would be far too strong for them to control. They need a world dominated by the human race, and the genetic blessings to be in hiding, or at the very least a minority. Now that Earth is fully inhabited by genetic blessings, it's only a matter of time before the Guardians destroy it." "Well then, let's hope that Walter comes soon." Meanwhile, Al and Alex stand staring down at the broken mirror that is now shattered on the ground, knowing that the world that they had just visited, that was suffering and turmoil, was destroyed instead of saved, as Al and Alex are now torn at the motivations and the morals of the side that they have chosen, the side that Vince refused to choose, as Alex then looks at Walter. "So, that's it then. You just destroy it. It's gonna cause problems and it's dangerous to have around, so you just destroy it? You just ruin it? And you're telling me that that's gonna be the result of Earth? You guys are just gonna destroy the planet Earth?" "Not if we can save it. There is still hope. Al is the last surviving human being. Excalibur protected him, and so there is hope. If Al can become a Guardian and take Dracula's place, then there is still hope for the planet Earth," says Walter, with Al still having a hard time justifying what Walter had done. "Oh, so that's it then. Just put me in charge and what? Control the entire planet of genetic blessings to make sure that they don't destroy the planet? You know, I don't think it has to do with the genetic blessings or humanity, Walter. I think it just had to do with that world. I think that world was corrupted," says Al, with Alex being shocked at the words leaving Al's mouth. "But ours is different. Humans have been told time and time and time again that we are the reason. We are the reason for the world's demise. We are told time and time again that our mere existence is what's going to bring the end of the world. Now, how many times is an entire race going to be told that before it becomes true? If you tell someone something about themselves long enough, they will make it true. And it's been a huge propaganda. we are going to destroy the world we walk on. And enough times of hearing that, we are going to make it a reality, because we're going to convince ourselves that it's true. But Earth is pretty old, man, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I don't think this is the result.
It will not be. Al, you are absolutely right on that one,
says Walter as he puts a hand on Al's shoulder.
You are right. But not if Vince has his way. Not if Dracula has his way. They will destroy planet Earth. Dracula will not control people in order to salvage Earth. He will control them to dominate Earth, and he will turn them into an army. And he will wage war on all of the other worlds, and he will wage war on us. He will try to kill us. And Vince, well, Vince has a new mission. He has a new goal, and he will not stop until he kills all the Guardians. I bring this up to you because I know how you guys feel about Vince Caballero. But we must capture him, and any decision that the Guardians make, you guys must accept it. You guys must be okay with the fact that Vince is a danger, not only to you and himself, but to the entire universe. And we must get rid of him, so that what I had just done does not have to be done again,
says Walter, with every word breaking the heart of Alex. However, Al has become hardened and is not the man that they once knew, and is not the man they met. For he has a full understanding of what Walter has said, and unlike Alex, he agrees with Walter almost 100%. And so, Walter, Al, and Alex walk through the mirror that leads to the planet Earth, and as they approach, Dracula can feel Walter's presence and is shocked that Walter has returned in his human form instead of his true form, and has returned with Al and Alex. But beknownst to Dracula, unlike Vince, Al has come a long ways in a few days' time, and Alex, unbeknownst to anyone, including Walter, has figured out what her genetic blessing is, and has used the Guardian's technological advances to create herself a whole new suit that is beyond compared to anything that Earth has been capable of producing. And the three of them are now approaching the Golden White Temple. Waiting to greet them stands Dracula, Vince, and Abraham in the front of the doors of the Golden White Temple. As Walter, Al, and Alex walk closer and closer, they now stand toe-to-toe from each other.
This is your final chance, Vince Caballero,
says Walter, with Vince putting his hand out.
I do not need another chance. I do not need a second chance or a third chance. I have made no mistakes.
It is you that will be begging for a second chance, Walter. I see what you are capable of. I know what you are capable of. The pain and turmoil that you have caused. And I will not stand for it, says Vince, with Alex and Al seeing the conviction in Vince's eyes, knowing that Dracula has persuaded him, and there is no getting Vince back. Walter, Al, and Alex charge in to attack as Abraham quickly creates a line of explosive fire that blinds Al and Alex as Walter charges straight through and tackles Count Dracula as Dracula and Walter engage in combat, with Dracula having the edge over Walter's human form, for he still has the god orb within him, and Dracula quickly realizes that he will have to hold back on Walter so that he does not use his true form and possibly kill Vince, Abraham, and the Chief, but still is capable of winning the fight so that they are captured and taken to the Garden of the Guardians. And so Dracula swallows his pride and begins allowing Walter to gain the upper hand. As the flames from Abraham cease, Al and Alex gain their eyesight back as they then charge in once again to Abraham and Vince with a sudden erupt of diamonds bursting from the ground, almost piercing Al as Excalibur quickly moves on its own beneath him and blocks the diamond from piercing Al, with Alex using her mecha suit dives out of the way. Seeing the diamonds erupt from the ground, anger boils within Al as he sees the Chief then walking out of the gold and white temple. He glares at Vince. You son of a bitch! What the... Are you serious, Vince? Jasmine gave her life to kill this guy. Gee. You brought him back? You brought him back and made Jasmine's sacrifice in vain. You made her die for no reason, simply because you want to beat us? Simply because you can't fathom the fact that there are beings stronger than you? Says Al, with Vince knowing the pain that Al feels, for he felt the same pain upon seeing the Chief. But sacrifices must be made, and he must believe that Jasmine would want this, that Jasmine would not want a world that is controlled by higher beings or controlled by Dracula, controlled by nobody but a true free world. And so Vince forces himself to continue believing that he is making the right decisions. However, he does not respond to Al, and the silence from Vince angers Al even more, as he then finally charges once again, wielding Excalibur. However, this time it is not towards Vince, but it is towards the Chief. As he swings towards the Chief uses diamond to block the blade. However, the blade cuts through the diamond as if it is butter, with the Chief narrowly being able to dodge the blade and dives backwards. Al and the Chief then engage in combat as the Chief uses his air manipulation to fend off the strikes of the blade, and then uses his diamond to attack Al. However, Excalibur moves on its own free will, on its own intuition, blocking every strike and adapting to the chief's strategies, quickly giving Al the upper hand, with Abraham and Vince both standing facing Alex, with Alex having uncontrollable tears running down her face. Vince cannot bring himself to fight her, and does not allow Abraham to fight. Vince, do not allow your emotions to take hold now, says Abraham. However, Vince continues holding back Abraham as he looks at Alex with the tears running down her face. You guys have a plan. You guys do have a plan, don't you? Says Alex, with Abraham snubbing his nose at her, with Vince nodding his head. Does that plan require you to win right now, or lose?
We have to lose this round. We must lose this fight, but we have to survive, responds Vince, with Abraham being shocked at what Vince is saying. The fact that he is sharing information with Alex, who is now the enemy. However, Vince has seen Alex like this. He has seen her tear up, and it is always because she regrets something. Okay, well, then on your knees and let me cuff you. And I will ensure that your plan works, says Alex, with Vince beginning to walk towards her, with Abraham confused. Why? Why help me now? Says Vince, with Alex looking at him. Because I don't agree with Walter, and I don't agree with the Guardians. And even though I don't agree with you, Vince, Jasmine, you loved Jasmine more than anything in this whole world. And letting her die was the hardest thing you've ever done. You were a train wreck afterwards. So, by bringing the chief back, I know that you must truly believe what you're doing is right. Even more so than the Guardians, even more so than Walter. So, I want you to succeed. I want you to win, says Alex, with Vince smiling back at her and falling on his knees, with Abraham following in suit. Meanwhile, Al continues his fight with the chief as he thrusts his sword over and over towards the chief, as the chief erupts diamonds and manipulates the air to continuously block the blade. He finally erupts a massive amount of air that explodes in a gust of gushing wind that throws Al backwards, as the chief then starts hurling spear-like diamonds directly towards Al, with Al diving in the air and hopping on Excalibur and riding it through the air as if it was a surfboard, dodging the blades, dodging the diamonds. He then leaps off of the blade as Excalibur hurls itself towards the chief, with the blade then fighting the chief on its own as Excalibur swings back and forth, with the chief fully occupied and fully focused on his defense. Al grabs out his revolver and begins loading the exact bullets he needs to defeat a defensive genetic blessing, and begins shooting the chief in the kneecaps and in the elbows, with the chief consistently trying to block the bullets. However, multiple bullets connect with the chief,
and if he were not mortal, his wounds would be beyond severe, would be beyond fatal, as the chief quickly begins getting beaten by Al. Al begins remembering all the moments he had with Jasmine, the times they spent together, cooking in the kitchen, making pancakes and eggs, the times they spent laughing, the movies they went to watch, the games they used to play, and then her final words to him as she died, just to defeat the old man he is now confronting once again. With the chief being brought to his knees, Al throws his revolver on the ground and begins walking towards the chief as Excalibur continues the onslaught, slashing into the flesh of the chief. Al finally grabs hold of Excalibur and grabs the chief by the neck. "I want you to know, old man, if you weren't mortal, I would kill you right now. I win, I beat you, and I will beat you over and over again. I will make you regret the day you became immortal. I will make you regret ever knowing who I am," says Al as he begins to pummel the chief, driving his fists into the chief's face, hitting the chief into the ground, and repeatedly punching him into the face over and over and over again, snapping the chief's nose, snapping every bone in the chief's face, and then waiting and letting the chief's face heal. As it completely heals, he then begins striking into the chief's face once again, snapping every bone over and over and over again, continuously letting the chief's face be demolished by his fists, and then healing back, and then demolished once again, as Al's fist becomes so covered in blood, it's as if he just dipped his hands in a 5-gallon bucket of nothing more than the chief's blood. With Vince and Abraham watching in horror, with Alex being terrified of what Al has become. "This is not Al," responds Abraham, with Vince nodding his head. "You are right. This is not Al. This is someone else. What have they done to him?" With Alex grabbing Vince by the shoulder. "It's not what they have done to him, Vince. It's what we have done to him. It's what you have done to him," says Alex, with Vince still being shocked in horror. With Al finally ceasing the onslaught and picking the chief up and cuffing him, throws him in between Abraham and Vince, as he then glares at Alex. "Explain to me, Alex, why this man is bloodied and crippled, but yet Vince and Abraham are just fine, and they're cuffed at your feet." "Vince's emotion got the best of him," responds Alex. "He didn't want to fight me, and he didn't want Abraham to fight me. Is that really hard to believe? He did raise me, and he..." says Alex, with Al nodding his head. "Alright, I guess it makes sense," says Al as he glares at Vince, with Walter then returning with a pummeled Dracula, as Dracula is then thrown to the ground with Vince, Abraham, and the chief. "Well, I suppose it is time, eh? You guys have been summoned to the court of Nagarians. eh? Says Walter, as he then chains them all together and begins pulling them up off of the ground as they enter a mirror and return to the Garden of the Guardians, where they walk through a hallway of nothing but brick wall and pillars as they finally enter the Court of the Guardians, a large, empty room that is less of a room and more of a platform with flames above and water beneath, as they then all stand on a platform surrounded by the Guardians. As Dracula, Vince, the Chief, and Abraham look around them and look at all of the Guardians who sit high and surround them, Dracula is far too familiar with all of them and has hatred for each and every single one of them, as Vince is more astonished at the folks that he is looking at the beings he is seeing, as he sees an old man in white robes, with a white beard and white hair, slender yet somehow strong in appearance, with a large scar on his face, and this man was the guardian known as Merlin. As Vince looks to his right, he sees another man, a strong, bulky man covered in armor, with bright blue eyes and gold hair, and this was the guardian known as King Arthur. He sees another man with horns sticking out of his head and bright red eyes, a demonic-looking face with a slender body and large black wings erupting from his back. This man is known as the Guardian Azazel. Another man, a big, fat man, nearly 8 feet tall, largely overweight, but has the biceps of a bodybuilder, with a large hammerhead at his feet that is hooked to a long chain that's wrapped around the fat man's body. This man is known as Thor, the Guardian Thor. And then another man with bright pink hair and a more feminine look, a feminine face and a feminine body, with decorated and painted hands. This man is the Guardian Casmatine. And then one more man, a muscular, tall man that looks to be centuries and centuries old, with a large white beard and scruffled white hair, covered in battle scars, and this is the Guardian by the name of Zeus. With Vince realizing that Earth's mythology was born from the genetic blessings, which does make absolute sense, as Vince falls to his knees in fear, for there's a reason these men have been seen as gods. There's a reason there has been entire mythologies, entire religions built off of these men. And Vince feels complete and utter fear, and feels defeat, for he cannot even imagine, he cannot even understand how it would be possible to defeat these men, especially Walter. And knowing that Walter is the servant of these men strikes even more fear in Vince. With Alex seeing Vince for the first time defeated and giving up as he falls on his knees, she quickly gives him a quick kick, making sure that no one sees her doing it. As he looks at her, she gives him a wink and a positive nod, and a large smile as she moves her lips, secretly telling him that it's gonna be okay. And so Vince stands once again, and Zeus begins to speak. However, Vince, Abraham, the chief, Al, and Alex cannot hear anything coming out of his mouth, though his words roar. For Walter and Dracula, the rest of them cannot hear a thing. As Walter looks at Dracula, Vince, the chief, and Abraham,
You guys, have been summoned to either death or eternal imprisonment. Which do you choose? Which do you choose? Death or eternal imprisonment?
says Walter, with Dracula standing. Wouldn't you rather take the God Orb instead? I grant you the God Orb, says Dracula, with Zeus tilting his head and Walter being shocked.
You're willing to give up the God Orb? To save your own life, You realize that you'd be nothing without the God Orb. You would be human.
I understand that, says Dracula, as he then pulls the God Orb out of his chest with a tremendous amount of pain as he screams while he does it, and then lets it go as it floats to the Guardians. We had an agreement, says Dracula with a large smile, holding his hands out as he stares at Zeus. You told me that I control all genetic blessings of Earth, that I control the God Orb, says Dracula, as the God Orb is now in the palm of Zeus, in the center of all the genetic guardians, and I make the genetic blessings do as I choose. It must follow my orders. So, my final order for the God Orb is to destroy itself, says Dracula as he breaks into laughter, with Walter then having fear in his eyes as the God Orb then self-destructs in a massive explosion, blowing every Guardian back, knocking several of them out, as Walter is blinded by the light coming from the explosion of the God Orb, along with Al and Alex, Vince, the Chief, Abraham, and Dracula close their eyes just in time, and when they open it, every Guardian, including Walter, is incapacitated, but only for a short amount of time, as Dracula then grabs hold of the chains and manages to get them to Abraham, as Abraham quickly melts the chains away. We don't have long, follow me, says Dracula calmly as he then runs. And the rest follow as Vince then grabs Alex and picks her up as he carries her and follows the group as they go up the flight of marble stairs with narrow walls and enter the room surrounded by mirrors. Now we enact our plan. Says Dracula as he goes through the first mirror, and then Vince and Alex quickly jump through the second mirror. Abraham jumps through the third, and the chief finally jumps into the fourth mirror, with the Guardians quickly following as they approach the room that has now been emptied, with Al cursing. Zeus begins making commands, though Al still cannot hear any words coming from Zeus's mouth, even though they roar into the ears of all the other Guardians. As King Arthur jumps in the same mirror as Dracula, Casmatine follows Abraham. Walter looks at Al.
I am going to get Alex back, yeah? And I will take care of Vince for you, yeah?
Says Walter, with Al grabbing Walter. No. Vince is mine. Vince is mine. I'll get Alex back. Vince is mine, says Al, with Walter shaking his head and grabbing Al's hands and removing them from him.
No. You have training to do, Al. You are essential. You, are going to replace Dracula. I cannot have you, die.
I can take on Vince. I beat the chief.
Al, don't be an idiot. Jay, let us win. Yeah. This is what I wanted, yeah?
Says Walter as he shoves Al to the ground and follows Vince and Alex as he jumps into the mirror, with Thor jumping into the mirror after the chief, with Azazel, Merlin, Zeus, and Al being the only remainders. Wait, we're only sending one Guardian? One Guardian per person? Asks Al, with Zeus putting a hand on Al's shoulder. Al can hear a voice, though it comes in the form of his own. These people, these genetic blessings, stand no chance against a Guardian. They're pathetic. Vince, Dracula, Abraham, they are nothing more than ants. We only need to send one. With Al being shocked at the words in his head, Zeus removes his hand, and the rest of them return to the Garden of the Guardians, as Al stands in the room of mirrors, in silence and in anger. And that is Genetic Curses, the introduction, and I will be continuing it in Genetic Curses, Count Dracula. And so, with that being said, that is where I stopped the video. If you guys have listened for this long, thank you very, very much. If you guys are enjoying the series, please do like and subscribe. With that being said, do not get hit by a meteor, take care of yourselves, and bye.